Welcome to the Landco podcast, where we aim to bring value to landowners and prospective land buyers through our experiences and network. I'm your host and managing partner of Landco, John O'Reilly. All right, guys, welcome to the Landco podcast. This is the first series, first episode in our new series, the Year-Round Whitetail Hunter. Again, we just had an intro a week ago or so, but a quick recap of what we hope to accomplish in this series is follow these guys with Ryan Pudick, Matt Lynch, obviously some of the better deer hunters that I know. Just going to follow them and see what these guys do month after month that leads to continued success that most people, frankly, just don't have. So I know that they do more than most people that I know, so we're just going to bring that to light to hopefully bring value to our clients that own land or people that are wanting to buy land to kind of see like, hey, can you handle this, or do you have the finances to have people do it for you? Because this is what it takes, to consistently shoot big deer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's hop into it. We chatted a little bit before we started, and truthfully, I'm going to be the moderator here because these guys know, everyone knows, like this is not my forte. I had my kid 7 years ago and have not deer hunted since, so I don't have the patience for it. I'm just not very good at it. So that's why these guys are here, but I'm here to keep them on track. We chatted a little bit before we started, and I asked them to come up with like the 2 or 3 or 4 things that they're doing this month, which would be January 20, to help them for next hunting season. So the first half of the month was actually technically still hunting season from last year, right?
Right.
But we're talking next year. So we chatted about those things, and we came up with largely they had the same list. Which is not that surprising. But we picked the top 5 things that they're both kind of doing, planning on doing. I'll run through these just in case we kind of bounce around a little bit. Once we start, I'm sure we'll kind of, again, bounce around and get off topic. We're good at that. But the 5 things that they both said that they're doing or planning on doing was, number 1, predator control. Number 2, scouting. That's both on pictures, kind of inventory. Snow cover does that to kind of see the movement. They both said they were adjusting stands based on that research. They're both looking at getting all their equipment ready for next spring and kind of calculating, what we're going to plant where and how much seed we need and that sort of stuff. But these guys are going to go into a little more depth on that. So let's just hop into it. Predator control was actually the first thing that both of you guys said. Ryan, I know you've been doing it for like pretty hot and heavy here for the last couple of weeks?
About the last 10 days or so. Yeah, I've been out coyote hunting a little bit. Got a guy coming in and doing some coyote trapping for us. The one thing about calling coyotes, I'm not that great at it. I enjoy it. I'm very passionate about it.
Isn't it just like you turn on like your little iPad app and...
I mean, I've got an actual caller that is all Bluetooth compatible. So, I use different types of calls depending on the type of the day and whatnot. But, the other day I had a great hunt. I shot 3 in a couple hours, bouncing around to different farms that we have. But if you really want to get ahead of the coyote population, you've got to have a trapper that really knows what he's doing. And they'll come in, they'll set foot traps just below the surface of the ground, and that's how you get ahead of your predators.
Right. Is that similar to what you're doing?
Yeah, we've not had a trapper come out. We're going to look to get a few guys, shoot some. We have explored trapping. We're probably going to get the name and number of your guy to come out now that we've had more ground acquired in the last couple of years. But I agree. The importance of it is huge because, these deer have been hunted for the last several months. They're stressed out. The last thing that they need is, a large predator population chasing them around, adding more stress to it. These deer are worn
and those
out.
Predators are extremely hungry right now.
They are.
They're looking for every possible meal they can get right now. So they're getting very aggressive, and they're coming into the breeding season.
Exactly.
The predators, let's just say it's the coyote population.
Yeah.
I think their peak breeding season is late January, first part of February. And so they're getting very aggressive right now.
Exactly.
So
any animal living in the elements right now, colder temperatures, they
lack
need
of
to
food.
eat. Exactly. So
Is the main concern? Because I know coyotes can track down and kill weak deer. Is the scare more that they're gonna kill part of your population, or just kind of push them out because there's so many of them, or both?
Part of it for me is, and jump in at any point,
Sure.
is the more of the coyotes that you remove from, let's say, the pack, because they're all very territorial and they're in family groups, if you will. They will hone in on an area, in my experience, and will decimate your fawns in the spring.
Ah, got it.
So what we're taking out of the population right now will save a certain percentage of fawns for your deer herd, your button bucks and whatnot,
Yeah.
in the years to come. Basically is the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if this is up your guys' alley more than mine, but when I did back at North Creek, remember we had that for what, 4 or 5 years? I think it was the last year, and that was probably the last year that I hunted. I saw more coyotes that year than I'd seen probably the previous 10, and I also saw less buck movement that year. I don't know if they just spread out because they don't like the population of coyotes. I don't know if that's true or not, but that correlation happened for me.
For me this year, and I was just talking to a guy about it this afternoon, is my trail cameras don't lie.
Yeah.
And the amount of coyote pictures that I got on trail cameras this year might be at an all-time high. For me, where I'm located at.
Right.
And I think that's different depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a huge red flag that we need to do something this year because the coyotes are really, really rampant where I'm at.
Yeah. Probably one of my least favorite things that, it drives me crazy is when I'm getting trail camera pictures of a bunch of deer in any of our food plots. And the next thing you see is, every single one of them turns their head in a picture. And the next picture you get is a coyote busting through there and all the deer are gone.
Yeah.
It's one thing if I make a mistake, and go in the wrong place at the wrong time, bust the deer out. But if it's in my control, if I can take the predators out of there and eliminate that, stress on the deer, keep them comfortable in our plots, that's
And sometimes the coyotes are helpful because as you know, hunting late season, if you're hunting on any given evening and a coyote does come in to blow the field out,
Stir them up a little bit.
That's good because it'll blow the field out and you can get out of your stand or tower blind and not educate a bunch of deer.
Exactly.
So
and we can move on from that, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about deer, but it's got to help the pheasant, quail, turkey, all
rabbits.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so this one I assume will take a little longer to talk about because there's, I'm guessing, a lot to this that I'm unaware of. But you guys both said scouting. You had talked about trail camera pictures and inventory. I know you're doing a bunch of trail camera pictures, so you talked about that a little differently. So talk about what you're taking inventory of. What do you mean? What bucks made it through? And what bucks, because I think you got a few new ones too, right?
Yeah, so, and jump in, like you said, anytime. So we run the Cuddy Link system as we've talked about on previous podcasts. So we don't really have to go into a lot of areas to disturb anything. We can kind of just pull one chip and see what's going on in a lot of our food plots right now. I'm looking to see not only the deer that we've been watching all season are still around, still using our plots, but number two, that they're healthy, that, they look good. It's sometimes this time of year you see a deer you've watched for several months, and I've had some that look sickly, and those are the ones you end up finding, late March, like something happened, whether it was an injury that got them, and you end up taking them out or whatnot. But it's a great time right now, especially after snow. Go and see where the deer are moving, what deer are still out there, and that they're using the plots that you've strategically placed to keep them around.
You got a new one too, right? Which kind of affects what you do moving forward, right? Can we talk about the deer that you got on camera or no?
to be honest,
we don't have to say.
To be honest, on one particular farm, there's a couple. There's one that's showed up that, I said you're lucky in a lifetime to see a 200-inch deer. I think if you see more than one in your lifetime, you're doing something right, or you're very lucky. Right. We're seeing number 2 in this, maybe number 3 in the same season, on the same farm. So that's really exciting to see. Got a few pictures of a new stud, and also here recently another stud who for some reason only seems to show up end of January, but it's third year in a row we've had pictures of him. But
that's why you take inventory, right? Because now you change your plan a little bit.
It is. I was just talking to Dad the other day. He's like, you know what? Obviously, something needs to change. If this is the third year in a row he's showing up, but it's at the end of the season, we're going to need the game plan about how we can get this deer
might
onto our
have to be a
place.
little more aggressive on him.
Might have to. And if we can, it looks like going into the 2020 hunting season, we may be chasing a couple more 200 inchers.
Right. So that's part of the inventory. You see what you have, see what's coming in to kind of.
Plus, you're up and comers. You look at your age structure. It's very hard for me at this time of the year, and I think a lot of guys will agree with this. Very hard to look at deer right now and be able to age them effectively. Being able to tell a 3 from a 4-year-old right now because they run down from the rut. Yeah. Just the rigors of being a deer throughout a 90 some odd day season. But if you're able to identify those deer earlier in the season, he's a 3-year-old or 4-year-old, whatever, and just watching to make sure they're still available. What the possibility they'll be there for next year, provided they aren't taken out from predation or EHD or some of the other variables or just natural causes. Another thing I'll do is I'll sit, because I'm fortunate enough to where I'm out in the field every day for the most part, to where I'll go out and watch from a distance with binoculars or a spotting scope and watch a 5-acre standing bean food plot and watch the deer come in and sit there and formulate a plan in my mind, watching how late season, how they're entering a food plot based on wind direction, moon phase, all that different stuff. That's just how it works for me. I'm able to figure out that I know in the last couple of weeks of January, if I haven't tagged out, I can go in there. If I've got to stand in this location, I'm going to have a better opportunity of shooting a mature whitetail than I am sitting in the stand that I've sat in October and November.
Right. We've talked before there, we have a couple of farms that we try to keep, as little pressure as possible on these places. And we've checked cameras, a few times over the last month and a half out there. And there's some deer, as you were saying, they're on that borderline. And we're never going to shoot a deer if we're unsure if it's mature or not. So kind of seeing where they're moving and, what their activities like this time of year. We already know where we're putting some stands next year to prepare for, late season and know that at that point they will be mature and we're probably going to have a crack at them.
Right. So we talked about the snow stuff. Do you guys try to look at the tracks when it snows, or is it something you got enough cameras up that you just say, I'm going to monitor the movement through the cameras, or if you're out there, you look at it, or how's that work?
For me, it's both. I utilize the cameras. Cameras don't lie. I already said that. But when you can go around a food plot area, let's use that as an example, and you just see a mud trail coming in, and that's a trail a lot of times isn't used during the regular season. Right. All of a sudden, they're creatures. They just follow different funnels coming into that food plot late season, because they start getting, in my opinion, start getting a little bit more herded up.
Right.
So you'll end up having 10 or 12 does coming into a certain food plot, and it's just in a line, one right after another. Where in the regular season, that typically doesn't happen. At least not for me, anyway.
Right. Snow is one of our greatest assets that we can use to, be able to scout and, see what deer movement is like and kind of just get a game plan together. At some point we have ideas about where deer are moving through during the season, based on pictures. But when you can actually go out there and see the tracks, define trails where they're moving, it definitely kind of helps, put the last piece of the puzzle together.
What's crazy is one day last week, I spent 6 hours walking a farm that I hunt, and I found areas that I had no idea that the deer were using. And because of the snow, I was able to identify I think it was 3 different bedding areas that I never had a clue that they were bedding in because of the snow.
Right.
It really magnifies what you're trying to find.
Yeah, for sure. Before we move on to stand adjustment, because I think all that's going to be kind of predicated on the stuff that you find on the last one, but we didn't talk about this, but I'm positive that you do this because we talk about it all the time. We're also monitoring the food they have. right? A lot of the farms we have, you go out and it just happened on another one, whatever, last week we're talking about for this coming spring. You're like, they don't have enough food. It's gone. I went out there and there's no food left. So that's probably not too challenging, but it's certainly something you look at, right?
Well, and I look at, because I do farm,
Yeah.
and so I look at the Farmer's Almanac and all that kind of stuff. And if I remember correctly, last August, whenever it came out for this coming fall or this past fall and winter, they were calling for 3 or 4 different polar vortexes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so I left way more food this year to help our deer herd get through that than I've ever left before. And we haven't had that situation yet.
Yeah.
But I'm prepared in case we do.
But other farms, you've seen, we plant food plots because people ask us to plant a certain amount, and it's just not enough food.
Oh, you're done by January 1st.
Yeah.
Or sometimes even December.
And that's when those deer that like you want to have enough food.
Absolutely. If anything, I think something we do is we overcompensate, for what these deer need during the regular season. We always try and have more food than probably what's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But by doing so, some of these deer that, you don't see during the regular season, they show up late January, February, and they realize, oh, wow, look at this place. I've not been around here that often. I see there's a ton of food. There's great bedding opportunities. There's a little
certain
pressure.
Percentage of deer that will resonate with them, and they will stay.
And they will stay.
They will not leave again.
Exactly. So, like I said, we're trying to, get some patterns figured out on some new ones that we've seen this happen with over the last couple of years, so we can kind of get a different game plan together. But that is our strategy: is not only try and supplement these deer that we have all season through the winter, but also pulling some new ones that we hope, we'll bet there for and stay for the next season.
Okay. You both talked about stand adjustment. I'm assuming that's based on some of the new information that you got from the snow, from the pictures, stuff like that.
Yes.
Do you actually move them, or do you just say, "Hey, we know we're going to mark this"?
No, I love moving stands. Right now through February, and it's kind of based on MRI, most recent information. Adjoining that with your past experiences in that stand, I will go in midday and adjust the stand during the season. When, sneak in, adjust it if I need to. But right now, if I need to move a stand 50 yards, 100 yards, this is the time to do it, because everything is so magnified, because there isn't any foliage in the timber to speak of.
Yeah.
The snow's on the ground, and even if you don't have snow, you can still identify the heavily used travel corridors and adjust accordingly based on the information you've got today, plus the information that you compiled throughout the entire deer season.
Right.
It's best to do it while it's fresh in your mind. You've just been hunting the last few months. You've seen what these deer are doing. You see what they're doing now. With snow on the ground, no foliage. You go and say, that was the area I was thinking was going to be good. I can confirm now that it is good. Seeing what I'm seeing, with trails, it's the time to do it.
For sure. And some of the stuff you guys will continue to do into February. But I think you're right, because if you don't do it now before spring, like spring hits and you're running.
I don't have any time.
Don't have time to do it. Then the summer hits and
the other part is that I'm getting older, lazier, and more overweight. And I don't like doing it in August when it's 95 degrees. It's a lot easier to do it when it's 30 degrees.
Okay, well then the other one, I guess few that are pretty similar is and it depends on what sort of stuff you guys have, but like these guys both have equipment. So you said you're getting your stuff cleaned and ready and repaired. Just
make it just regular general service. We're looking at some of the demands for this season, the upcoming season versus the past season as far as equipment. If I need a new broadcast seeder, for instance, this is the time of the year where I do the inventory. Is there anything new I need? Maintain, do all the general service, replace worn out parts on let's say the drill, things like that going, so it is ready to go when Mother Nature says it's time to go. I'm ready to go, and I'm not sitting there trying to fix a chain that's broke or something that's wore out.
Yeah, it's during the season. I mean, I'm not great about it, but I try and make a list of things that I frustrate me, or what can I do to make this project easier, make this more efficient, jot it down. This is the time to take action on it, because, the more you wait, you get busy with life, things happen, and you just end up putting it off. Then you're back, it's time to work on this or work on that.
Right.
You're like, I never took care of that.
It's the same thing in waterfowl. It's like even stuff as small as like a mower, you have a couple, whatever, bearings or blades that you need to replace. And it's like, and you write it down. You never do it in the season. You just get too busy. So that's, you do it at that point. That goes along with planning. And this is important for a few reasons, but that's also like, what, did this food plot work? Did this one work? Do we want to change this from, a green plot to grains? That sort of planning, right? So and maybe you're not ordering seed yet. Some of the stuff you may be ordering now, but you want it ready. So, next month or whatever, you start ordering stuff, right?
I'm always formulating in January, because it's still fresh in our mind from the hunting season. What worked, what didn't.
Yeah.
And we're so fortunate living in the Midwest and Illinois that there's not many things that don't work. It's green and grain, basically. And it could be your radishes, your turnips, your clovers, and beans and corn. There's nothing that's going to beat that. I mean,
some stuff do. Like we've tried, beans on a few plots that people want us to, and they're too small, and we have to be like, listen, guys, beans are awesome. They're not gonna grow here.
They will not be there. There will not be any sustainable food there for them to hunt come October 1st.
Exactly. So we're rotating his stuff around. Like on your personal farm, you probably got it figured out.
Right.
But it does take some planning, especially if you get a farm and it's new. Like the first 3 years, you guys have bought new farms. It takes a while.
It's a learning process,
It's 3 years, and in my opinion, it takes 3 years to properly figure out a farm, to be efficient at going in and shooting mature whitetail.
Right.
There's always luck involved. You can't get around that.
Yeah.
But to efficiently go in and consistently kill a big whitetail, mature whitetail, in my opinion, it takes 3 years to figure out.
Case in point, the farm we did our podcast on with Dad's Deer, it's the third year that we've owned it. He went out and killed the 214-inch deer this year.
Yeah.
We do things consistently, and we've stuck with it. We've made some adjustments, and we've kept some things consistent because it's worked for us. And success.
And now there may or may not be a few more good deer.
Now there may or may not.
Here's what else that's important about that last few steps, which is preparing and running the numbers on what you need. Also, figure out how much time that's going to take. Because, we can do that stuff because that's part of our job. But sometimes people get behind because they underestimate the time, right? I mean, getting someone to switch grass, whatever. It's not like you just go drill it. There's prep, there's all that stuff. So what I always tell people is figure out if you can do it, right? Because you had an issue too where it's like you thought you had enough time and you didn't. It's like, luckily we're all buddies and you're like, hey, run over here and help. But sometimes it's nice to analyze how much time it's going to take to see if you can handle it, right?
Sure. Yeah, we're fortunate, that, like I said, we have a great relationship with, you and, Ryan. We're all friends and everything. That we got in a bind, we got behind with stuff, things happen, and we called Ryan and said, hey, one of our farms needs to be planted. It's not, what is it, like 12 acres tops between all those fields over there, maybe
tops.
Right.
He did us a favor, went over there, took care of it, planted it for us. Obviously a mistake we're not going to make again. We need to plan it out and know what is manageable for us with our time and our resources. And now is the time. Seriously, we talked to Dad and my brother. It's the time to sit down and say what food plots work for us, what mixes of seed work for us, what do we want to do this year, and make arrangements. Because
and who's doing what, right?
And who's doing what? Because I can guarantee you, as we continue to buy more land, or change things up, our time is our most valuable asset. We aren't able to do it all ourselves, so we'll need to talk to Ryan to come and help us out.
Well, that's why I asked, because that's why I bring it up, because if someone calls you now and says I need 20 acres planted in June, no big deal, right?
No big deal.
We've seen Ryan get grumpy during deer season. You want to see him grumpy, tell him to plant 5 acres on May 5th and call him May 4th. The answer,
right?
The answer is usually like no, right?
There's no chance.
So it's like, if you know you can't do it, or aren't going to be able to do all of it. Like, even if you want to do part of it, it's no big deal. Be kind of like, self-aware and honest with yourself and say, hey man, can you guys help me out in whatever? I'm gonna work the ground. Will you plant it? But tell us, or if you're using another, land developer, no big deal. But whoever it is, tell them now, because it's much easier for us to.
For the planting stage, because it's not just tilling the ground and planting the seed. To properly do it, there's possible soil samples, there's fertilization, there is getting the ground tilled, and then we're not even brought up Mother Nature,
For
because
sure. Yep.
Rain is going to be a part of this factor at some point in time, and then you got to get the seed in, and so there's a lot of different steps to getting that food plot. So
if you're prepared in advance, you can usually make it work.
Absolutely.
If you're not, sometimes it just doesn't work the way that, our standards are higher than most. We can say that. But when we're forced to do something late, it doesn't sometimes work out how we like up to our standards. Right?
For sure.
The only thing we didn't bring up, and I'm sure everyone would have said that would be one of them, is shed hunting. You guys don't do it yet, or not a big part of your plan yet?
February.
February.
Okay.
I was just chatting with Ryan about this. Now is the time of year, unless I'm getting trail camera pictures of a deer I'm very familiar with. I'd like to get a hold of him. If I see him shed and I'm confident of where he's dropped him, I'll go in after him. But January is a time I like to put as little stress on the deer as possible. Right. Let them eat, get comfortable.
Yeah.
February is a time where a majority of the deer are dropping anyway. So that's
a lot of your bigger deer will drop first.
Right.
In my past history with shed hunting, is your bigger deer typically will drop quicker than some of the littler ones. And so I always wait till the first week of February is when I really start focusing on shed hunting.
So that will do it for this episode. We appreciate you guys watching, and we will be back at you at the end of next month, February 2020, and about a month from now. So thanks for watching.